Forest of South Arkansas, where our conservation forestry efforts are focused, are a wonderfully diverse place ecologically, with deer and turkey and quail, with hundreds of species of plants, and many of those are quite rare. 81% of the forest land in the state, and the state's over half forested, is owned by private landowners, industrial and small individuals, families. The individuals and families own 57% of the forest of Arkansas. If we're going to restore any usable size, any landscape scale places, the Nature Conservancy needs to work with private landowners, and we do so from large corporations down to individuals. Kingsland Prairie is our premier conservation forestry example. In 2002, we bought the property. By 2007, we had prescribed 4 ecological thinnings that paid for 84% of the purchase price of Kingsland Prairie. In the future, as we thin more at Kingsland Prairie when the time comes, we'll be able to use those funds for stewardship there and other places, and to purchase other places to add to our conservation forestry toolkit. And that's exactly the message we want to portray to private landowners in South Arkansas. That they can take a piece of property, buy it, use the timber to pay for the property, and continue to use the timber to do stewardship work like prescribed fire, and pass it on to their children and grandchildren, maybe sending those children and grandchildren to college, all the while providing wonderful habitat for deer and turkey and other wildlife species, and meet their forest land ownership objectives. Just a few years ago, I think in 2003, the U.S. Forest Service studied all of the forest types in the United States, and they found that the shortleaf pine, loblolly pine dominated forest cover type was the second least protected cover type in the United States, with less than 2% of its natural range protected. The threats to the forest in South Arkansas are several. One is lack of fire. Fire was removed from the forest 50 years ago. The second threat is the dense pine plantation, so clear cutting, then bedding, which changes the hydrology and therefore the plants on the forest floor, then the very dense monoculture of loblolly pines that shades out everything else for 15 to 20 years. So it's more and more like agriculture and less like natural forest. The threat of development and fragmentation, or having small pieces of forest not connected, is also here in South Arkansas. We use a lot of terms in forestry. Basal area is defined as the square feet per acre of the diameter breast high, or DBH, of the trees that are on a small plot of land. This is a typical dense pine plantation before it's thinned. It's probably 110, 120 basal area, which means it's about twice too thick with trees. And what that means is that sunlight cannot reach the forest floor and allow plants of any nature, hardwood trees, wildflowers, anything to come up through. So what you get here is a monoculture with nothing more than loblolly pine and poison ivy. And that's about it. Well, this is what I call duff. This is the pine needles and leaves from several years of shedding from these very thick trees. And between no sunlight and this cover on the forest floor, grasses and forbs and wildflowers cannot express themselves, cannot grow through this. And that means that deer and turkey and other wild game animals and non-game animals do not get what they need to survive in this kind of a habitat. What we do at a conservation forestry site is mark the trees either to cut or to leave. In this case, we've marked the leave trees. And that's to tell the logger what he can cut and what he doesn't cut. And it's also to inform us of what density of trees we want to leave here. In this case, it's about 50 to 55 square feet of basal area. And you can see the many trees that are to be cut and the fewer trees that are to be left here. So this will be a very good opening for sunlight to the forest floor, and after prescribed fire, the duff layer will be gone, and you'll see many plants express themselves here that you do not see today. So out here we're making sure that the trees that are down don't have blue on them, and the trees that are still standing do have blue on them. So far so good. We're checking to see if the ground would hold the skidders, and it's doing a good job, and the skidder drivers are doing a very good job. You don't see skint trees right here. This is going very well. This is a great panorama. This is the spacing we wanted. This is the basal area we wanted. The tops are not touching now. Lots of sunlight getting to the forest floor. With prescribed fire, this is going to be a great place in 2 or 3 years. It's going to look great. South Arkansas is also home, and the piney woods of South Arkansas is a great home for the red-cockaded woodpecker we lovingly refer to as RCWs. It's a small woodpecker about yay big, and it's the only woodpecker known to live in live pine trees. It makes its nest out of older, larger pine trees that are red-hearted, that is, they're rotten in the center a little bit, and they move from tree to tree foraging in a rather open spectrum of woods, not unlike what we're seeing right here. The woodpecker is on the endangered species list of threatened species. That we like to see the red-cockaded woodpecker management habitat style, which calls for about 70 basal area to be left. That's a fairly open forest, but we can't do our work without partners. A great example of the Nature Conservancy in Arkansas working with its partners is the Morrow Big Pine WMA natural area in South Calhoun County. On potlatch land, with potlatch as a major partner, we worked with the Arkansas Natural Heritage Commission and the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission to purchase a conservation easement using U.S. Forest Service Forest Legacy funds administered through the Arkansas Forestry Commission. That's 6 partners right there. And we had help from professors at the University of Arkansas at Monticello Forestry School. It's a great project. It protects red-cockaded woodpeckers and about 16,000 acres of wonderful pine oak flatwoods. The Morrow Big Pine example is a great example because it's a working forest that produces products, produces jobs. Potlatch continues to pay taxes, and it's open to the public as a wildlife management area for deer and turkey hunting and several other forms of hunting. It's a great place for the public. It's a great place for private industry.